there. I'm just going to do a bit of an intro for the viewers who are watching us from their homes, from the 48 countries that we do broadcast in, and then right after that we will get into the panel. Thanks so much for your patience. Hi, good morning, everyone. We are coming to you from the warm city of Durban. Today, my name is Fifi Peters. We are here at the Durban International Conference Center where the Shape Durban Conference is taking place. It kicks off today, in fact, for the next 3 days. Now, African cities are in a race against time to modernize and ensure their relevance for the 21st century. The continent's population is growing, and so is the number of people moving into cities in pursuit for a better life for themselves and their families. Currently, the city's resources are not keeping up with the pace of population growth, which presents challenges for both social and economic resources. Now, governments all across the continent are having conversations as to what they need to do to ensure the competitiveness and the viability of their cities in the modern world. This essentially is what we are doing here. We are here to find out what the city of Durban is doing to address these challenges and also exploit the opportunities that this will bring. For the next hour, ladies and gentlemen, all our viewers at home, we will be engaging a number of speakers and yourselves as to what needs to be done to ensure that the growth of this new city is more inclusive for all. We'll be asking questions about the role of women in the new modern city. We'll be asking questions about the role of small businesses. We'll also be asking important questions about the role that the youth will play in shaping the city of Durban. We love hearing from you, and as always, we would love for you to share any ideas that you might have with us. The hashtag is #ShapeDurban. We will certainly look out for them on Twitter if you would like to engage with us, and we certainly encourage you to do the same. And the same goes to all my audience members here. There will be an opportunity for all of us to engage and to exchange in ideas. We'd ask you to make use of that hashtag as well, and also we will be passing out an opportunity for us to engage with each other via a Q&A session sometime towards the end of the panel discussion. On that note, I would like us to begin our discussion, and I'd like to introduce our speakers who will be taking us forward this morning. I begin with Phillip Sithole, seated on my left. He is the Deputy City Manager for Economic Development and Planning Cluster. Palesa Phili, who is the CEO of the Durban Chamber of Commerce and Industry, who is seated there on the very, very far left. Coming back to the speaker that is seated closer to me, Dondo Mogajane, the Director General at National Treasury. Next to him, we do have Mandisa Ntombela, who is the Global Shaper for the Durban Hub. And finally, businessman Terry Rosenberg, the Chairman of Multiply Group and Oakbrook. Panelists, thanks so much for your time. Phillip, I'd like to begin with you. Viewers in the 48 countries that CNBC airs to are probably wondering, Shape Durban, what is the Shape Durban conference about? I mean, our regular viewers will know that you and I interact quite often at these high-level discussions that the city often hosts. What makes a Shape Durban different?
Well, the difference this time around is that we want to involve all sectors of community within and outside Durban to contribute to the future of the city in as far as economic development is concerned. We are reviewing a strategy that was adopted by Council 6 years ago that we have been implementing in the last 6 years. There have been some success stories, there have been some challenges. So in every 5 years, we have to go back and evaluate and see how do we move forward. But what we did this time around as the city was that in as much as we are doing the economic development strategy for the city, but we must shape it in a manner that it involves all sectors of society, because the economy is about the entire society. It's not only business. So here we have small businesses, big businesses, informal economy workers, academics, people who are representing young people, as well as women-based organizations, so, and chambers of commerce. So it is all inclusive.
Talking about the Chamber of Commerce, we've got the Durban Chamber of Commerce here with us. Exactly what is your role in shaping Durban?
So I'd like to start by just explaining what the role of a chamber is. So for those of you that are not aware, we as the Durban Chamber of Commerce, we are the second oldest chamber in the country. We are 162 years old, and we're actually the largest chamber in the whole country. And we focus on two things mainly. The first one is policy and advocacy. What does that mean? It means that we are the voice of business. We are, in layman's terms, like the union for business. You know, in our society, there's a union for workers. So we are like almost like a union for business. So we represent the interest of business and really do quite a lot of advocacy for business. Still on the advocacy side as well, we also do quite a lot of contribution towards legislation that may affect our businesses. So we do submissions and contributions on behalf of the business. The second part that is also equally critical is that we are a business network. So we offer access to markets to our members. So we always continuously promote engagement and networking within our members and ensuring that our members do business together. We also quite actively promote, encouraging a lot of businesses to also look at international markets like exports. So we are there to also assist and facilitate that process on behalf of our members to ensure that companies and organizations that want to go and get into the export market, they have got the market first of all, and we're able to actually assist them to be able to trade in those markets. So that's just high level, just a quick summary of what we do as a chamber.
Right, quite an extensive role that you guys do have to play there. But DG, before we began with this panel discussion, you presented to the people here in this room about National Treasury's thinking around city development. The viewers did not get to hear some of the things that you had to say, so perhaps enlighten them about the exact role that National Treasury is playing in city development.
Thank you very much. I think it's important to note, as I said earlier, that cities as a whole account for almost 60% of our country's GDP. So therefore, their contribution in ensuring that the economy of South Africa performs are critical. So that's one. And that's why I said about 8 years ago, we started partnering with cities. We started partnering with Ethekwini in ensuring, and we came up with the City Support Program as a focused program in the National Treasury, put together some focused grants, as an example, the Neighborhood Partnership Development Grant, which ensures that we develop cities from within and expand the base of its Ethekwini, in this case, Ethekwini's contribution towards national GDP.
Right, and let's bring business in right now, because we are looking to the role of business, the important role of business in holding hands with government and holding hands also with labor in taking the city forward as we talk about this inclusive growth. Terry, just talk to us a little bit about your business interests and exactly what it is that you do.
Well, thank you, Fifi. I thought, just looking at the panelists, that I was probably the oldest person here, but I heard the chamber's 162 years old, so I've got a way to go. But thank you for the opportunity to be able to speak some positive narrative into a media environment that is pretty negative, about a lot of things in our country. I think one point that I would like to raise is to the point of our DG Zondo's points earlier, that partnership is a very important aspect of how we can get together, business, labor, and government. And to give you a practical example, this very convention center that we're sitting in had its 21st birthday 2 weeks ago. It was formed out of a public-private partnership called Operation Jumpstart, which I initiated, and we've got people in the room who were part of that, Andre Kapila and many others, John Bengu. And we had a vision to make this the conference center of Southern Africa. And we had great support from the city, great support from Labour and the politicians. We worked together with a very clear focus. And the result of that over 21 years is that some 34 billion rand has been contributed to the South African economy. There have been 8,000 conferences held here with a total of about 7.1 million delegate nights. So there's just one example, Fifi, of how a partnership can work, and many other thoughts as we go into the discussions this morning.
Right. And of course, I mean, this is quite critical, the success of a partnership achieving this scale, given that right now we do have both labor and business and government seeming to be on opposite sides of the fence, even though we certainly need to be on the same side if we're going to make this South Africa the beautiful country that it can certainly be. The youth has a critical role to play in the future. I mean, in about 2 years or so, young people are going to be the largest working population on the continent. So by leaving them behind, your cities are operating to their detriment. It's quite encouraging to see a young person on this panel. I mean, Mandisa, talk to us as a young person in Durban about what it's like to be a young business person in Durban. Perhaps share with us the experiences of young people in Durban and the role that they play in the city's business development currently.
Thank you, Fifi. I think the first thing that comes to mind as you're asking me that question is how exciting it is to see that in the room as well, so many young people here. And this reminds us and gives us hope that people are interested, young people are interested in assisting to drive the city forward, especially the city's economy. And also when you get to chat to so many young people that are here and interested in the city, you get to hear all the business ideas they have, what they've been doing in their small spaces and what they've been trying to achieve economy-wise. We can't ignore the fact that the majority of the youth is still quite unemployed. And this just reminds us that we are interested in doing something for ourselves as well, and not just waiting for a handout or waiting for someone to say, oh, well, here's a job for you. I mean, we've got we've got a variety of stuff that we are interested in, and we're using those things to help better ourselves and empower ourselves economically. And also to know that there's opportunities for us like to be on this panel gives us hope as an excitement that actually I do have a voice. I can use my voice. Someone is interested in what I'm doing for myself. So we're learning from each other, we are teaching each other, and of course we're looking on to much older peers and what can we do to assist in driving the city forward.
No, certainly. All right, so the major theme that Durban is looking to really foster and bed on the ground is this concept of partnership for growth. And Phillip, talk to me about the partnership. Phillip and Palesa, in fact, let's talk about this partnership between the city and the chamber. What growth are you hoping to exploit as a result of this? And Phillip, let me begin with you.
Well, I think when it comes to partnerships, we, as a city, we have been working on partnerships for a long time, as Terry was saying. And we partner with various organizations, and Durban Chamber of Commerce and Industry being one of those organizations that we are partnering with. And partnerships, they come in various forms. Some partnerships, they come in a formal way where we have memorandums of understanding, as we have one with the Durban Chamber. Other partnerships, they come in the form of demands and people being frustrated. They want to have the piece of the cake that is in the form of business forums in the city, or they call them Telangokbona. But we look at all these kinds of partnerships as partnerships that we have to manage in the interest of trying to bring investments into the city of Durban. And we have worked well with business. If I can give you 2 examples. We are working very well with Growth Coalition, which is a coalition of big business in KZN. I think top 100 businesses in KZN. We've got a slot there where we engage with them behind the scenes in talking about how do we take Durban forward. That is big business. We have a partnership that has been recently created through work that we have been doing with National Treasury. There are 2 projects that we have achieved in the last 6 months. One of those projects was to create a unit within the municipality called Invest Durban, which facilitate, through partnerships with private sector, promote and facilitate and retain investments in the city. And we also have Team Durban, which was a creation of a structure by Ethekwini Municipality, and that structure is comprised of business people, and it works with the Mayor of Durban in promoting the city of Durban as an investment destination. Last part that I want to talk about when it comes to partnerships, it's a partnership that we have created, even though it's not a partnership with private sector, but it's a partnership with a very important stakeholder, which is National Treasury. We all know that very few people like National Treasury. Not because they're stingy, but they come with all these kinds of circulars that frustrates us at times. But we work with them in shaping the future of the country. And we have worked with them in shaping the future of Durban. The last 2 examples that I used were out of work that we did with them in partnership with the World Bank to arrive at Invest Durban, as well as Team Durban. So we are very excited about partnerships. We have seen the delivery, but some of the partnerships are challenging, but we have to manage them. We can't dismiss as if they don't exist.
Right. DG, I apologize. The term is fiscally prudent. I think that's how you guys call it. Palesa, Phillip has given us some insight into the partnership, the many partnerships, in fact, that the city has, but one with you. And I'm just, so we see the vision, we sort of understand the vision a little bit better. The fruits of this vision for business in Ethekwini, what will this likely be?
Yeah, so, I mean, as the chamber, and as, of course, the voice of business in the city, we're very, very excited. In fact, we commend the city to focus and say we need to have partnership with the private sector in order to make sure that the contribution towards our strategy for our for the city's economic development, there's a significant contribution and commitment from the business as well as the chamber. So we're very, very excited that we're going to be, the co-owners of this strategy, along with our members, to ensure that those much-needed jobs are created and there's growth within our economy. From the business point of view, what we've actually come to see is that most of our members here in the city and in the province are very, very committed and willing to look at private public partnerships with government. An example that I'd just like to make is, it was day before yesterday, right, Terry? We had a session with some of our members that are big corporates as well as medium corporates, where the mood was that there's a strong commitment, there's a strong sense of commitment and willingness to say we want to get into partnership with government, we want to contribute, we want to make that difference, we want to make sure that our city becomes successful, and we want to create those much needed jobs, and we want to grow the economy. So it's very, very, we're living in good times and exciting times when it's very rare where you get, business actually coming up and saying, listen, we want to have that partnership with government and we want to make a difference. So that's where we are right now, with regards to business and the commitment. So initiatives such as Shape Durban is very critical and taking us to the right direction where we are as a business in terms of the partnership we want to have with the city.
Right. I mean, it's quite encouraging what you do say because, I mean, many indexes and measures that we do have currently now of business confidence points to a business sector that is quite suppressed and lacking in confidence. So that is very, very encouraging. But Terry, as Palesa said, you were in that meeting. So business wants to have a partnership. You've got a practical example of how a partnership can work as you relate to us in your story in the beginning. I mean, I imagine there are lessons to be learned from that partnership that was brokered between yourselves and government around 20 years ago. So share with us the lessons learned and how the city of Durban, in trying to foster these new partnerships, can improve on what has already been seen to be done by yourselves and your partners.
Well, Fifi, you know, I think there's never one answer to business problems. You know, it's not like mathematics where you've either got the right answer or the wrong answer. But I think that if you look at all the projects, all the NGOs that are out there, and a lot of willingness from businesses' point of view to become involved, there's really three areas that we consider. The first one is vision, the second one is analysis, and the third one is implementation. So in this particular example, the vision was to make this the conference center of Southern Africa. That's all very well and good, you know, a lot of people sit around the table, talk about the vision, but you've got to analyze how you're going to do that, where you're going to raise the money, what kind of people have you got to get to run the situation, who's going to control it, how's it going to be sustainable. You do all that analysis work, and then the key part is you've got to implement. And I think if there's one thing that where I think we can help is that we do try and think that we at least can implement things. Whereas sometimes at government level, there's just so many things that are happening that the vision and the analysis is very powerful, but sometimes we fall down on the implementation. So I think that is where we can help. And just as one example in our own business, we're just continuing to invest in South Africa. This is my country, this is my region. I love it, I'm not going anywhere. And if we don't create jobs and growth, we're not going to have a lovely country. We all know that. So in our little neck of the woods, we've got a property development, a 1.3 billion development that's creating 3,000 jobs. Now, you know, we have to make our own investment. We haven't got enough. We've got to go and raise the money to do it. But we believe in this region. We've got, you know, challenges that we've got to get towards, but we can speak with Phillip. We can speak with the mayor and the mayoral office. We have direct contacts through the chamber. We're working together, you know, and what we always have to find is what role do we play? Are we in the visionary role? Are we in the implementation role? Can we contribute to some form of analysis? Right. But at the end of the day, the success, in my opinion, is based on a clear focus to be able to implement the vision. Otherwise, we've got 10 people working on one thing. Doesn't get implemented.
Right. And you know, implementation is such an important and a critical part in South Africa's case, because I don't know how many of you are aware of the International Monetary Fund's report that came out. It was yesterday or the day before. And the IMF DG was talking about how its optimism in South Africa's prospects or growth is waning. I mean, it was quite a negative report, although it did have factual things about what we are not doing as a country to reach our potential. But one thing that the IMF did say was that we have got so much of potential. It spoke about, you know, South Africa's ability to put its best foot forward if it implements some of these reforms that it has promised to do. We have seen it so far, but clearly it needs to be done at a faster pace. DG, Terry is somewhat of a emotional investor, if you allow me to call you that, because in as much as I'm sure you put your money aside or into projects that you know will get a financial return, for you this is home. Like you say, this is your country, you're not going anywhere. It's about putting money in through the good times and the bad. Of course, DG, in your interactions with all the foreign investors that you have been talking to, from New York to London to Japan, they don't have that emotional connection. And I'm interested in the kind of conversations that you as a Treasury are having with them to see past some of the turbulence that we are going through, because certainly you will need their capital as well, given that we have to be fiscally prudent in your department in terms of spending.
Thank you very much. I think we need more Terrys people with vision and people who understand where we should be going, who believe in this country. This country has got great potential, and we have demonstrated that in many, many ways. Through partnerships like the one that Terry was talking about, we have something called the CEO Initiative, that South African call it senior CEOs or senior business people in South Africa who partnered with government, and the initiatives that became one such initiative, something called the YES, Youth Employment Service. It came through the engagements and the necessary partnerships. The challenge for Phillip and others is then, how do you bring that onto a locality like Ethekwini? Because we are discussing at national level, the initiatives are mainly at national level. How do you localize them? And that's going to be a challenge. We've got through partnership with the same CEO initiative, there's a fund that was put together, a fund, a 1.4 billion fund, small business development fund. How does that translate into actual support on the ground for people here? So through partnerships, there's possibilities. The conversations that we have with international investors is the one where we give them hope. We are able to show them that, yes, we've got potential. But as I said in my speech earlier on, if we continue tripping ourselves, we go 2 steps forward, 1 step backwards all the time, or 3, 1 back, it doesn't help. And there are many ways as to how we actually do that and actually create unnecessary pressure onto ourselves. But the message we give them is the one that says South Africa is open for business. South Africa is open for investment. There was a key question on land. And we're explaining it's a necessary question to engage with. But only when understanding, then they're able to say, we do, but however, sort the following out. And they will raise things that I said are causing us to go backwards. But the key, and you mentioned the IMF, we engage with the IMF. They come twice a year in South Africa through the Article 4 consultations, which then is a formal report that many people around the world, including investors, use, that deep dives really into the South African challenge and issue. What they were doing for the past 2 weeks was a normal staff visit. And in a staff visit, what they do, then they come with a concluding statement that you saw in the newspapers. We engaged with them for the past 2 weeks, various sectors, business, labor, ourselves. But the key point that they're mentioning, you're right, they're saying there's potential, there are structural reforms and structural challenges that you must deal with. And thirdly, they're also saying, however, the narrative, obviously we'll never agree that, I always say to people, investors, global, I say to them, South Africa is a very noisy democracy. We are noisy by nature. We talk loud as if we are going to collapse. But then we normally come out united, we come out with one narrative. And I think Durban and Ethekwini has proved that in the last few years. And this is the partnership that we had with them. It's not a partnership, adversarial one. It's the one that says, how do we help each other? How do we exercise our role? Will be hard a little bit sometimes here and there, but it's all in a good space to say, how do we ensure that, one, you comply with legislation that we have to ensure that, and there's a particular role, but also take us on, and Ethekwini has proven by taking us on where it matters. And that's why we're able to open a purse and open a conversation that says, let's support cities, including Ethekwini. We'll always not leave you behind. Some cities are doing the same, but also secondary challenges. Secondary towns also have to be important. We cannot continue to create umhlanga in the way it is. We must also think of Komashi, Umlazi, KwaDabek, and say, how do we look at those areas and ensure them that there's no water that's spilling over in the roads, water, sewage, etc., and ensure that these are respectable areas where people stay, and people can, have a dignity of living. So it is important that as we embark on shaping Durban, and that's my view, as we embark on shaping Durban, and not only look at Durban as the inner city, including Umhlanga and just the beachfront, etc. No. It's about where majority of our people live, where inequality is rife and homelessness happen, and where we have to be and show impact and direct impact. So for me, the approach, just talking city development, we should not forget that a city should be looked in terms of as a collective, including areas, rural areas that are attached to the city, townships attached to the city, etc. So that's my own view as to how I think it's critical that we look at, because it's only when you do that that I'm able to go into the investors in California and in London and say to them, we have got a model that works. It used to be Cape Town, it used to be Durban, it must be other areas. Umlazi, have you seen Umlazi? Come to Durban. There's more for you. So it is important that we actually create a narrative that says South Africa is at work and government is really behind. And it shouldn't be, we shouldn't celebrate the partnership between national government and the Ethekwini. It is a necessary partnership. And it must be it must be in our daily lives that we partner, even if we don't have to sign agreements, etc. It should be natural.
No, for sure. I mean, DJ, we've even got some multinationals that have shown themselves to be on that wave of thinking. I mean, Airbnb right now is rolling itself across various townships. You've got, Uber right now that's operating in various geographies within the country, because they recognize that ultimately, I mean, there is a spending power there that needs to be tapped into, included into this economy. And let's stay with this issue of inclusivity, because Mandisa, you were talking about the role of young people. You were addressing the young people, particularly in this room, and you highlighted the importance of ensuring as a young person that your voice is heard. So how exactly did you go about doing it in your line of work? I know you work with companies, you bridge them in their actions, or you connect them greater with communities. As a young person facing this, maybe older establishments, like the oldest one here being at the chamber, how did you get them to take you seriously?
I think, first of all, it's to understand that sometimes you just need to be resilient and just knock and knock and knock until someone opens that door for you. And sometimes you'll bother the likes of Terry because they keep telling us, come back next year, when's the budget? Or come back for the next event, there's no more space left. But it's when that passion is burning inside of you, you don't want to give up. You want to keep trying, and you want to keep having these conversations, and eventually someone will listen and take notes of what you are pointing out. So I think as global shapers, we've gone to understand the power of coming together, the power of collectiveness, collaborations, and partnerships as well. And that there's so much more power when we are speaking as a collective and not just as Mandisa Ntombela from wherever I'm from. So we understand that the more we come together and discuss burning issues, common issues amongst ourselves, and we bring forward a voice of oneness, it's more effective than just myself going to speak to, Bob Phillip and saying, hey, I've got this issue. But when it's a case of, here is a group of us, here is a common issue that we have, how can we come together to aid this, or what can we do to help to address this issue in our society? So the biggest thing has been coming together as a group of young people.
So that partnership, partnering for growth still. Right, Phillip, I mean, let's get to the meat of the issue now. So we're looking to shape Durban. That means growing Durban's economy. I mean, like the national economy, it has been under strain. To grow the economy, we need more investments coming into Durban. Business is thinking, okay, if we want to partner, what kind of investment opportunities are there for us in the city? Why must we bring our money here?
Well, I think firstly, there will be no business that will come to any destination if there are disruptions and there is no proper governance. And Ethekwini, in terms of governance, it has all the structures in place, because I think we need to firstly talk about how we are comprised as Ethekwini as a municipality. So we've got councillors, we've got the executive committee, we've got committees that looks into, the DG earlier on spoke about corruption. We've got our own scoper in the municipality that looks at issues around corruption, so that corruption is dealt with, it's minimized and dealt with. We've got the investigation unit that deals with people who are corrupt, and we've got proper disciplinary boards that have been established. That is to deal with corruption. So we have noted issues that have been raised around corruption, and we are properly structured to deal with that. Secondly, it's about two policies that already exist, which one, it's about investments. On the issue of rebates, there is a big issue about rebates for businesses that are investing in the city. We are clear on that. There is a framework that has been approved by council. I think the latest one is under review. It has to be finalized, I think, by the 6th of December in the last council meeting of the year. We've got departments that have been created solely to deal with big investors. One of those departments, it's a department called Catalytic Projects, where we fast-track applications from business. We fast-track issues around compliance, so that when the investor comes here, either foreign or local, it doesn't get frustrated with long processes. And something that's supposed to take 2 months, it takes 2 years. So we've made sure as the city that we shorten that and we become efficient and effective. But there are still challenges. We're dealing with those challenges. Last point is on business wants to know where to invest. We've got a development plan that is clear on nodes that have been clearly defined, and type of infrastructure, basic infrastructure that will provide in those nodes. Just to use one example, in the west of Durban, we've got the Ntongweni development by one of top investors, which is Tonga Hewlett. We are already working in a partnership with them. We have already set aside funding, which was approved last council meeting, on the infrastructure that is required for that project to take off. It's a multi-billion rand project. So Durban is at work, as the DG was saying, that South Africa is at work. Durban is part of South Africa. We are one of the engines of the that pumps the economy in this country. We are ready for business. We are at work. We've got our own challenges. We are dealing with those. We've got plans to deal with challenges. And last point is that Shape Durban as a conference. It's a conference that we are all. It's very inclusive, so that we take ideas from everybody, and we have one vision. We don't want a vision for Durban Chamber or Minara Chamber of Commerce, but we want to have a vision for Durban that is shared by all stakeholders.
Right. Ladies and gentlemen, in just a moment, I'd like to include you all, as Phillip has said, include you and invite you to share your ideas as citizens here in Durban, perhaps business people here in Durban, about the kind of Durban that you want to see and what needs to be done to shape that. There is a mic that will be coming around. I would ask that you just raise your hand and you stand and you just let us know where it is that you're from. Before I hand it over to you, I'd just like to stay on this issue of the ease of doing business and Durban's proposition. So like the country, I mean, South Africa doesn't rank very highly when it comes to the ease of doing business. As Phillip said, there's a lot that still needs to be done, and you're dealing with them. So what is being done, Palesa, by way of things like starting a business, by way of access to electricity, by way of construction permits, by way of red tape and bureaucracy? I know that the Chamber looks quite extensively at these areas, and there are reforms that you did start to put in place. Where are we in this process, and what has changed?
So, as the Durban Chamber, we believe that, of course, we've got membership, which is large. 40% of our members comprise of the large businesses, and 60% is actually small, medium businesses. So, as I said from the beginning, we continuously hard at work to ensure that there's ease of doing business for our businesses. So there's a couple of things that we're working on as a chamber to ensure that the SMMEs do become active, and some of the red tapes and the boundaries that are preventing the SMMEs from being successful are kind of like taken away. Some of the challenges that we've been working quite closely with government, actually it's a Treasury, is the issue of delayed payments to SMMEs, which is absolutely crippling most SMMEs and making them bankrupt. So we as a chamber have taken that as something that we're actively advocating on, working very closely with Treasury to look at ways and means in terms of what are systems and processes that can be put in place to make smoother transitions, to make sure that payments are done quicker. So we're working on a proposal with Treasury, and hopefully we would get to completion to stop the boundaries of delaying business, doing business with government. When it comes to private sector, We are very much actively working with our members, especially the bigger organizations, and looking at, enterprise supply development programs. We are actively encouraging the bigger members to ensure that they become more inclusive and include smaller businesses to get them to start doing business with them. It's a lot of work in progress. And of course, the bigger corporates, some of them, they've got longer payment days. Also working with some of them to reduce the longer payment days once they actually give these SMMEs opportunities to make sure that the payment happens accordingly. When it comes to issues such as municipality-related services like your electricity, water, we work very, very closely with the municipality, and wherever there's challenges, whether it's small businesses or big businesses, I must say, and the municipality acts very, very quickly to ensure that any boundaries that are reported to us that we take to them are addressed. An example, we had one of our members that had an electricity issue. We took it up with the city to say, this is a problem that is there, and the city was able to act very, very quickly because they realized that if this matter is not addressed, it's actually affecting the business of that particular member. So we're continuously working on programs to ensure that we encourage less red tape for small businesses, to ensure that there is ease of doing business with both government as well as big business.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's contribute in shaping Durban, right? It's a collaborative issue. We need to partner together at this stage. I'd like to know if there are any suggestions as business people operating in this city, what needs to be done to shape Durban. And I'd like us to use this opportunity to be sort of constructive. So not maybe focus on what is not happening, but rather how or what needs to be done to make it easier for you guys as business to operate. The mics will be coming to you, and I would ask that you stand. Could we have this gentleman in the front, and we'll take that gentleman at the back. And we see your hand, and we do see your hand. Mics will come to you shortly. Sir, can you begin for us?
Morning, everyone.
Morning.
I'm Sbo Akachan from Originality MG. I'd like to know, is there any maybe a project or initiative that can help small businesses around in Durban in terms of access of resources, in terms of access of research, in terms of marketing analysis within Durban, as well as in terms of infrastructure, like an office space where we can also allow to be just small businesses without offices to be able to work there.
Right. Thank you, sir.
Good morning. My name is Andrew Lehman, and I represent Catalyx Consulting. I want to ask a question about partnership, mainly to Terry, but Philip may also want to come in on this. What Terry described, I think, in telling us about the development of the ICC was a golden age of public-private partnership in Durban, because it wasn't only the ICC. There were quite a number of projects, I think, which were planned jointly and developed jointly, and they were all developed to fulfillment. In fact, the Growth Coalition was a partnership. It was announced jointly by the public and the private sector. Unfortunately, in my view, we haven't been able to recapture that golden age of partnership since then. So what is different? What must happen now so that we can revitalize the effectiveness of the partnership that occurred in the early 1990s?
Sure. Thank you so much for that question. There is two hands to that area there. Can we just get mics to them?
Sorry, my name is Namsha, and I work with a social justice organization that focuses on advancing women. I have a few comments, and I know we're supposed to be nice to each other and very polite, but that's not what we're in the business of doing when we're dealing with people's daily lives and their pain and their oppression. So my first question deals with social problems. How is it that you can, in our work, we found that social issues are directly linked to economic issues. So if there's no social advancement of a particular group, they can never participate properly in the economy. And that kind of economic growth is the gendered kind of economic growth that only includes men and doesn't include women. So that's the first observation. And the second observation is to do with the institutions themselves. I mean, there were some very nice things that were said by the panelists. And Ethekwini Municipality, in my experience, has made strides in including marginalized people, but the thing is, the institutions themselves, what are the long-term plans for making these institutions accessible to marginalized people such as women? Because much of the informal sector is women. But what is the plan to include them in the formal sector of the economy? Sure. Because just because you put a woman and make a woman a CEO of some business, it doesn't mean that women who are in the grassroots are actually benefiting from that. So what are the long-term plans to include women in a meaningful way in the economy, not just as, minimum wage workers, but I'm talking about at a boardroom level where we don't have women as just the token people just
token
there.
Face. All
Yeah,
right.
and the
All
third
right,
thing
you.
is also to do with the long-term plans. This is specifically for the DG. All of these plans that we hear, and I was watching that medium-term budget speech, the short-term solutions, the short-term plans. What is the 20-year plan you have for this country? Because the reason we're in this issue is because we keep thinking short-term, short-term, short-term. What's the long-term plan? What do you envision for this country? Because the world is changing.
Right.
Africa is still trying to industrialize when the world has moved on from industrialization.
Right. Can I just stop you there? I think I've got your points, just to make sure that everybody gets an opportunity. You see why you need young people to be more included in this economy? Love your thoughts. Let's just take, one more question there, and then we'll just address the first round of questions. Yes, ma'am.
Good morning. I'm Ashley Skafturas from a small company called Kanga Mama. Some of you may know who I am. I just have a question on the handcraft industry and the craft industry in KZN in general. Globally, we're actually quite known for our handcraft industry, but I haven't seen much of a change in the industry or a development in this industry. I've even found it very difficult to find statistics that are any later than 2014, 2015 on the industry. And I want to know what programs or information can we access within the city, even in private, on how are we promoting and fueling the handcraft industry, especially when it comes to supporting local, when it comes to not defaulting to buying Chinese manufactured goods, higher end products. So if you look at countries like Germany, who have whole malls dedicated to handcrafted, locally manufactured goods. Yes.
Can I just stop you there? Thank you so much for that question. Right, I am gonna allocate, but please do feel free to add any further insights into some of the points that were raised here. Philip, the gentleman here in the front was asking about more support for small business. Perhaps maybe bring to his attention what's already been done for small business or what he can access.
Okay, no, thank you. The Ethekwini Municipality has a department called Business Support, Tourism and Markets Unit, which supports businesses. We also have other entities that we have created within the municipality, which are sector-based. For example, we've got an entity that deals with businesses that are in the IT sector, other entities that are dealing with issues around innovation. We also have cluster programs within the municipality. So it depends on if your business is very specific, there are cluster programs. And I would encourage people who are interested in terms of types of support that the municipality could provide to a business to engage with us, to engage with a unit called business support, or we've got another unit that is called economic development and investment promotion.
Perfect.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. And there, maybe you can engage that idea of shared office spaces using this platform. Terry, recapturing the global age of partnership, how do we get back?
So I think that's a good question that Andrew asked, because the landscape has changed tremendously since the 90s. You mentioned the Growth Coalition, which is a follow-on grouping from Operation Jumpstart that helped to create this center. In my opinion, they're doing an unbelievably good job, because they've formed a link between the business community and a direct relationship with local government and provincial government. So it's expanded not just into our region in Ethekwini, but also throughout KZN. I think, as the DG mentioned, we've got to think of the smaller towns as well. And we found it very effective as business people, because we have a link when we've got a need to be able to get in through the Growth Coalition to help a lot of these projects happen. I think they're in the 10 to 15 billion rand kind of category, where they're helping to shape various projects. It comes back to my point, though, earlier, Andrew, that, you know, what role are you playing? Are you a visionary? Are you an analyst? Are you an implementer? You know, and there are many agencies doing different things. What we're trying to do is to make that work together. One quick example, though, in getting to the areas that are less fashionable, let's say, than Umhlanga, you know, because I think, DG, you made that point. It's a very good point. You know, capital is interested in one thing. You know, what's the return you're going to make on it? If you're emotionally involved, maybe you'll take a lesser return, maybe not even a return. But when you're taking money from offshore, they're interested in what kind of return. So I think one of the roles that we can play and that we are playing in our business is to find areas which are viable to create business in, so that it can attract capital and therefore can provide a basis for growth. One quick example, Fifi, is in the fintech area.
Sure.
We've got quite a big investment in fintech. It's a disruptive area. You know, Airbnb's disrupted the hotel industry, Uber's disrupted the taxi industry, and so on. You can't disrupt unless you've enabled. You know, it's got to be enabled first. We've got one example, a project that we're running up in the Congo, because we're up in Africa as well, where there was a picture of a road with a bicycle in the middle of that road with a whole lot of saddlebags on it. And what that was that gentleman was in the coal business. So he didn't have coal in the area where his bicycle was parked, but there was coal in the next town. He would take his bicycle to that town, but in the morning first he would get hold of his smartphone. Not a very detailed, educated man, but complete ability to work the phone, and also a good, strong entrepreneurial spirit. Call into the next town, find out how much coal they had, what calorific value it was, what the price was, and then went into his payment app to make payment, went with the bicycle with the saddlebags, filled it up with coal, and took it back. Now that may sound like a silly example, but he feeds his family and his relatives and friends on that kind of business. So what we've got to be looking for and helping for in business, in my opinion, one of the things is which are the areas where we can focus on where business can be attracted in the less fashionable, let's say, areas, you know, because putting money into an Umhlanga is important for the tourism industry. That creates jobs, you know, so, you know, we've got things on both hands.
Certainly. And
but
thank you for bringing up the importance of technology and this fourth industrial revolution, and what its role that it will certainly play in shaping Durban. Mandisa, can you address for me, as a woman, the lady there did address the issue of, you know, the social advancement of women. And I'd like to speak, or you to speak from a viewpoint of a lady who got in there and broke the ceiling and is doing things rather than waiting for policy and reform to just fall on your lap. Because sometimes the policy is there and the doors are being opened, but we do have a situation also where maybe we're not pushing hard enough as women, because we can do it by ourselves, right? We don't need people to do it for us. Your experience, if you can just address some of her concerns.
Thank you, Fifi. I think, first of all, we're still quite a long way before we can completely break the ceiling of women in business. But what has worked for me in whatever I'm trying to achieve is finding someone that I look up to, number one, and who has previously done it, And then how do I harvest the previous generation's strength? And how do I learn and lean on this person who I think, hey, you've done this successfully, what can I learn from you? Or what can I teach you? And most importantly, ask questions. Identify someone who's walked the path before and ask them questions. There's nothing such as a stupid question or a silly question when you are trying to achieve something. Ask as many questions as possible, and don't be afraid to speak to people that you don't know. You've identified, for example, Mrs. Palesa, so you're the CEO of Durban Chamber, how did you get there? What can I learn from you? And take note of these things. So most importantly, it's the learnings from other women who have broken the ceiling.
Right, the learnings, but as Terry also said, if you have a vision, clear vision of something as well, and maybe steps to implement, I think that will get your voice heard a little bit more. Palesa, okay, Durban, major tourism hub. There was a lady who asked a question about the textile industry and sort of what's being done there. I imagine that falls into tourism. I mean, the attractiveness, the opportunities for small business in tourism, and then also particularly, I mean, in the Chamber's pursuit to grow international tourism into Durban, which is very low, but which will certainly help local businesses. As South Africans, we're still fighting this recession and money is tight.
No, sure. So, I mean, from a Durban point of view, of course, international tourism is very key. I mean, a couple of weeks ago, the direct flight, BA flight, was launched. That carries people from, directly from the UK to Durban. We also have got 9 other international direct flights from Durban to the other, we've got another 4 international direct flights, I almost made that mistake, from Durban to the specific destinations. And when it comes to the textile industry, it's a very interesting question because not too long ago, I met with a couple of ladies from the the beads industry, where, of course, we're having a discussion with them. And I think an interesting part came in where, of course, the ladies that actually do the beadwork mostly are women living, in the rural areas. And there's a lot of questions that come out in terms of, how do they benefit? Because, here's this woman, she's going to have this, make up this bead, and then a bigger organization somewhere is going to make huge profit and not necessarily benefit. And also exporting, some of, these beads, but the main people that actually did this did not necessarily benefit. So we as a chamber are working with organizations such as, the beading industry to say, how do we, first of all, look at having some, basic regulations just to make sure that, the people that make these beads do benefit, number one. And number two, from a local tourism point of view, the prices are that of international prices. So, I mean, if you go to any place where they're doing, beads, they're quite expensive for us as local, as the local market. So we need to have some sort of regulation to say local tourists can also support to buy these beads at an affordable price and not necessarily at a price that is marketed for international tourists. So it is work in progress right now that we're working with this particular industry, engaging with different organizations. So if I would like, maybe if you can, give me your context after this so that maybe we can also engage with that particular organization and combine with this other organizations that we're working with in the textile industry to try and see how we can balance the the local tourism as well as international tourism to benefit all that are part of it.
Sure. I look forward to a 2-tier pricing system. Philip and the DG, in 2 minutes, that is how much of time we're worth with. DG, if you just address the ladies' question again about the long-term plan for the excluded groups there. In South Africa right now, your long-term plan is Treasury, and Philip, you'll give us the closing comment.
I would, with her permission, launch with her Operation 444. There's 444 pages of the National Development Plan, and I think we've got a 2030 vision. As a start, I think we must start there and understand what this document is, because I think we took a lot of time understanding it and putting it together. In it, it's actually giving us a roadmap that I think all of us should rally around. And such initiatives are captured in there in terms of how do we build sustainable economies, how do we actually ensure that the economy grows. And this initiative is one such. So, but I think we've got a template in the long-term plan, and all we are doing, whether through the medium-term budget policy statement or the budget, is all wanting to make sure that we actually focus ourselves onto that long-term plan. But I think it's important that as a collective, all of us, we must really go to basics of that document and maybe let it redefine ourselves as a nation, as a country, as to where we want to go, because the hallmarks of where we should be going in there are there. And that'll be a good starting point.
Right, but let's hope we get there. We can't shift the goalpost again, make it to NDP 2040. Philip?
Well, I think I need to address the question which was about partnerships. We do have partnerships, and we continue with partnerships, and we are very focused when it comes to partnerships. We've got River Horse Valley, which was a partnership, and it was about giving space and working together with private sector for industries to emerge in that area. We've got Bridge City as another partnership with Tonga Hewlett. It is right in the heart of the township, which is in Ndantuzu, Magwamashu. And we've got many partnerships that have taken place in the north. For example, Konupia, which is a multi-billion rand investment by government and private sector, which is a mixed-use development. We've got a new project, which is the Point Waterfront, which is a partnership between the Ethekwini Municipality and the Malaysian in reviving that part of the city. That is in as far as partnerships are concerned. But there was an important point, which is about focus. When you talk about focus, focus cannot come in a short term. Some of these projects are medium to long term. My closing remark is coming back to the purpose of this particular summit. I think we have listened to what people have contributed today in terms of questions and comments. That will shape the discussion from now going forward in the next two and a half days. Mainly, it's about how do we involve women, not only in the top positions, but also as small businesses and at the lower part of the economy, young people, providing them with space to do business, office parks, and so on. Partnerships, how do we partner with private sector to make sure that the economy grows? Last point, it's about how do we move forward with national departments like National Treasury. And we appreciate the grants that we're getting from National Treasury around the neighborhood development grants. Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, Philip, thank you so much for that list, quite an extensive list, and we might be out of time right now to tackle all those issues, but of course, we are certainly not out of time when it comes to this conference. It is only day one, so all of these issues, and I am sure a whole lot more will be discussed. The visions will be implemented around them, and actions also put in place to ensure that every vision is implemented. But from us here at the very first panel that has taken place at the SHAPE Durban Conference, which will be here at the ICC for the next 3 days, it is goodbye for now. By no means is this the last time you are hearing from us. We will be bringing you all the coverage you need to know, particularly as business people looking to engage further with the city of Durban Ethekwini. But a round of applause for my panelists here this morning.